everyone, I'm Carl Bierock. Welcome back to the Jaguar Football Podcast. And here we are. It's the week of the semifinal in district. And with us is the head coach of Seckman Football, Dr. Nicholas Baer. Coach Baer, so good to see you. And we appreciate you taking time out to talk to the fans today.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. I'm here. I'm up at school. We're finishing up parent-teacher conferences. So my 29th parent-teacher conference. So, 14 and a half years, they go by pretty fast. I can remember my very first parent-teacher conference when I was a Algebra 1 teacher, brand new, no idea what the hell I was doing. And the first two parents that sat down were a divorced couple and their daughter, who was a hot mess. Jennifer, I won't give her last name, and me having to play mediator between these two people. And I'm like, what in the hell did I get myself into? So fast forward 14 and a half years later, post-COVID, PE teacher, it's a little bit different day for sure.
I bet. So this podcast will be, I imagine, a whole lot more fun than what you went through for your first parent-teacher conference. But
yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, and then the other big question, I'm sure, everyone is asking you, what did you do on your Friday off? What was the big day?
My Friday off. What did we? Man, I'm drawing a blank. I did go home. We were off. Oh yeah, Friday was Halloween.
Yeah.
Sorry, Carl. Yeah, I'm not used to those very often. I got home. It was about 2:30. I had some energy. So if you have not seen, I did buy a new truck. Carl, have you seen my new truck?
I did see that parked there. I wasn't sure if someone took your spot or not. So
I did get a new truck. So I don't do a lot of work on trucks, but I got underneath it, took off the assist steps that came with it, and I took off the assist steps on Connor's truck. I worked on the hot tub a little bit, got a little yard work done, and I looked down at my watch and it was still 4:00. So I was like, well, I feel pretty good, and had some energy. And then, we have obviously with Halloween. So, waited a little bit, went over to a friend's house and the kids did the Halloween thing. And, like most parents, you go to bed and your son's out at night. And, just as I'm getting really, snuggled up into bed, we get a phone call that the truck died.
Oh.
Can't get it to start. I'm like, well, I've owned that thing since for the last 7 years. It's always started for me. So then I had to get up out of bed and go jump my son's vehicle about 11:30 at night. So not a bad way to. I'm usually up that time on a Friday anyway. But yeah, no, it was a nice little change up. From what we've done the last 10 Fridays, and looking to be busy again this Friday night.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into it and talk about what's going to happen on Friday. And so we have the privilege of hosting Northwest, a team that we saw, I believe it was week 3, and wanted to just talk to you about what you noticed, number one, with Northwest from the last time you played, and then what do you notice different about Seckman since you played?
Yeah, anytime, I know it's the old cliche, but anytime you have to beat somebody twice in a season, the second time is always harder. We're kind of familiar with this, with what we've been doing with, the song and dance we've been playing with Oakville the last couple of years. So nice little change up this time, getting to play a very good and improved Northwest football team, 7-2, rolling into our game. They lost to Oakville by 3 points a couple weeks ago. And, we know they're going to be motivated. When we played them the first time, we felt, we kind of had the upper hand, in the trenches up front, and we expect to continue to own the line of scrimmage if we want to win the football game. And we like the improvements that we've made, especially up front with our offensive line since then. And, we were able to, in that game, if you recall, find a lot of space on the edges. And that's something that, when the ball's moving in the air and we're clicking and we're catching the ball and the routes are on time, it can be difficult to stop. So, when you look at us coming from that Webster game, we clicked pretty well. And we talked about how, the balls were in the right spot, receivers were making plays. And, now we just got to continue that into Friday night. And when you look at Northwest, you watch some of their film against Hazelwood West, Parkway Central, Where their offense was successful. It's a lot of what they've been doing, a lot of get the ball to the quarterback and let him make plays. And now, he's getting a little bit more comfortable in the pocket, getting it out to number one in space. So, being able and ready to shut those two guys down along with their other running backs who, pretty good in the power run game, been a huge point of emphasis the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and you talked about in the last podcast that the quarterback playmaker, and it was big chunk yards against us week 3.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to just kind of get your thoughts and how do you prepare? So you have the benefit of 2 weeks. What do you tell the boys?
Yeah, well, Northwest they'll spread you out and try to run the quarterback, get them some space. They also have, and everybody that's been watching us, very similar to kind of how it looks in our Rhino. How they line up, unbalanced. They actually came out with a formation against us the first time we played with 9 guys on the line of scrimmage in a balanced formation, something we had never seen before in 15 years that I've been coaching. They have lots of formations to try to find and gain that leverage point to get the quarterback some space. So, making sure our boys understand their responsibilities in each formation and each coverage. What blitzes we're running and how to what changes on the back end when we're doing it. And it's good when you have 2 weeks to really hammer those details in.
And what's like the messaging that you're telling the players? Obviously the game went our way.
Mhm.
So what do you tell them going into this, that the records don't matter, or just kind of curious what the
Yeah.
messaging is?
I mean, this is playoff football. We've been here before. As coaches, these guys have been here as players. They've know players that have been here and it had success in the playoffs. Playoffs come down to details. And I told the boys today, and as we're going over the offensive game plan, going over the defensive game plan with each unit, and I told them, this game will come down to, this time of year comes down to the details. The things we've been hammering all year. I mean, if we go out and we get it done and we win 49-0, it was going to be hard because of those details. If we find ourselves in a nut cruncher and we win a football game 28-21, 21-14, it's going to come down to those details. None of this is going to be easy. You don't go out there and execute. It's not going to go your way. And if we end up on the losing end, I can guarantee you it's going to be a lot of the details, that we've been hammering these last couple of weeks. So, quite honestly, just the way we've been doing it the last 3 or 4 years, I never really feel like we overlook an opponent. When you're lining up against maybe, a team that you've beaten, you're worried. Well, the kids think, well, hey, we've done this before. We got them. I never really get that feeling, and so it's not something I worry about too much. We just keep a very consistent message, and hey, we're right where we want to be. We're the ones hosting the game. We're going to be in black at home, against a familiar opponent, and now we got to use that to our advantage.
Yeah, no doubt. Because, one of the messaging that I've just, from doing this podcast with you the last almost 2 years now, it's like, keep peaking and,
Mm-hmm.
Don't let, maybe even outside noise or noise internally, get to you. You're there and you got to focus on the task at hand.
Right. Yeah. And when we talked about that peak, and like I said, that Webster game really made me feel good about where we're at as an offense. And then also the defense. And now you think, well, the Webster quarterback threw for a bunch of yards, but Webster's game plan was to come in and they wanted to throw as many 50-50 balls as they could, throw the ball up in the air and let their guy make a play. And, well, they were about 50-50. And that's kind of where their chunk yardage came from. It wasn't breakdowns in coverage. It wasn't breakdowns in our run fits. Those are things I think we're going to need this week. I don't expect Northwest to come out and throw a bunch of go balls. I mean, if they do, we'll be ready. But we know going into this week, hey, our run fit's got to be on point. Hey, our reads got to be on point. Hey, our coverages, our multiple coverages we'll be running. We need to know if and when, we're running them. And that's something that we definitely have shown throughout the season and have done a good job at practice this week or really last week doing it and hopefully continuing through the rest of this week.
Awesome. Well, just one last reminder. Of course, we'll have it on our social media page, November 7th at the Valley, 7:00. And we certainly look forward to seeing everybody out there. And Coach, despite the fact this is the Jaguar Football Podcast, there's another game going on at the same time, about an hour and a half south of us. We have Jackson hosting Oakville. And so wanted to show and get your thoughts on the rest of the bracket here. Again, you mentioned Oakville had a very close game against Limburg in the first
Yeah.
round of the district. One of the questions I had asked of me is like, when it comes to district, how is that decided? We're in class 6,
Right.
and then there's District 1. So, how does that get decided? Like, how do the schools fall into a class or a district?
Right. Yeah. Well, they start with classes. You have the 6 classes, and they're all based on enrollment. So you take the top. I think where it's up to 42 schools now. So they do enrollment, and in those top 42 schools, or whatever it is, I think it's 40, 42. That makes up class 6, and then they come from the bottom of class 1, and they say, okay, the lowest 42 schools, that's going to make class 1, and then class 2 through 5 in the middle, they chop up evenly. So however many teams are left in the middle, they split into fours. So that's why you see more teams in class 5 and class 4, class 3 and class 2 than you do in class 6. And class 6 used to only be 32 teams. That got changed a couple years ago, much to my chagrin. But as with all politics, if the right people want to get something through, they'll get it through. Um, that was a battle of another color. I'm going to tell you that right now. But hey, it is what it is for the foreseeable future. We're in class 6 by about 80. Well, it's 60, 70 or so, 80 students. You wonder, well, why is Fox in class 5 and Seckman's in class 6? We just have literally less than 100 more students in them, and that's kind of been the main difference for us the last couple of years. And so then once they get once they have all the classes panned out, these are the teams in this classes. They kind of start. It almost kind of feels like they start from the southeast corner of the state and kind of work their way up. So you're like, well, why is Jackson in District 1? Well, in Southeast Missouri, there's nobody else that's that big. They're the only class 6 school in Southeast Missouri. So you can kind of see how it pushes up, and then it catches us. It catches Northwest, it catches Limburg, and it catches Oakville. And then District 2, all those schools are pretty tight. They're right in the St. Louis area. That's what you're just at CBC, SLU, Lafayette. They're all right, basically, and then District 3 goes to Pattonville, Rittner types, a little bit more North County, North City type area, and then it starts to push a little bit left, and then you get the St. Charles schools in Francis House Centrals and Francis Howes and Troy's in the District 4, and then it just kind of works its way all the way across the state. So it starts with enrollment, then it's based off geographics, and it's kind of one of those things where there's good things to it, there's bad things to it, and there's never a perfect system. Do I love this one? Not really. Why? Well, we're playing a lot of the same teams. I don't really like playing the same teams over and over again. We never get to play east side of the state, or excuse me, west side of the state. And I think that, in my mind, would lead to some more intriguing matchups, especially early on. Obviously, if we want to play teams on the west side of the state, we got to start playing a little bit later in the season. If you look at Illinois, they do it completely different. They take the top 32 teams in the class, and they rank them by wins. So, 5, all the way from 9 wins all the way down to 5, and not everybody qualifies. So if you only have 4, 3, or 2 wins, you play 9 games, your season's over. And so, of the teams that qualify all across the state of Illinois, I think they have 8 classes. That what they'll do is they'll say, okay, this is the 1 seed, this is the 32 seed. So it doesn't matter if, and they'll play each other first. So it doesn't really matter if you're in Southern Illinois and the other team's at Chicago. You guys are finding each other week 1. So you get different matchups, more intriguing matchups to, compared to, well, okay, the road always goes through Jackson for a district championship, or the road always goes through Seckman if you're in Oakville, So,
Yeah.
I don't get paid enough money, to figure that out.
No, I understand, because even with us moving into another conference, probably from what it sounds like, we'll probably still be in District 1, correct?
Yeah, it has nothing to do with our district. And, really, I mean, Northwest and Oakville, they're going to be keeping their same schedule. So they're going to be going 8-1, 7-2. And so then, we're going to have to grind to keep our schedule up and win football games. Let's say we go 6-3. We could play a tougher schedule and be below them in district standings. So it's you know obviously we need to take care of business and go 7-2, 8-1, or 9-0. But if you don't, and they got a little bit different schedule, then it does kind of affect you going into the playoffs. So it's hard to find something perfect, but certainly we get enough good minds in a room, you can figure it out.
Yeah, and Coach, that kind of leads into a really good segue into. Found this interesting on X.
Mm-hmm.
It was from the Missouri Helmet Project, and they're talking about for the state of Missouri, 120 first round games. Of those games, the average point of like the number of margin of
Yeah.
victory was almost 30 points. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I guess that would kind of be the opposite of what you were saying in Illinois, where you have, 1 in 32 fight off. But, there could be situations, I imagine, that maybe a conference is tougher than others. And yeah, it just seemed, I was really surprised
Yeah.
by that stat. It
Well,
really jumped out.
the first round games in any tournament are going to be very lopsided, and certainly when in Missouri, if you're in a district and you got the 2 seed playing the 7 seed, or in our case, it was the 4 playing the 5, which is about as even as it can get, with Lindbergh playing Oakville. But you're getting a lot of 2 versus 7s, 3 versus 6s, and in the world of high school sports, you either got the haves or the have-nots, right? And everybody's in the middle. Well, this first round, I mean, it's a lot of haves versus have-nots, and there's just no, we all love David versus Goliath, but not in Missouri high school football. It ain't happening. And leads to a lot of sideways matchups that can get a little out of hand. Had a couple teams even forfeit day of the game. I believe Normandy canceled on St. Jen at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I think another team got canceled on at 5 p.m. In the afternoon. So you run into those issues. But I think they ran the Illinois numbers too, Carl. And when you're going 1 versus 32, 32 ain't got a hope in a
Yeah.
prayer. It is there a right way? Is there a wrong way? I don't know. You got to get through the first round. I mean, when you get through the first round, you see a lot of really good football games coming up this week. And, you do the NCAA tournament, 1 versus 6. You think basketball tournament, that's everybody's biggest tournament. You don't get, I mean, I know you can get a couple, but basketball's a little bit different animal than football is. But, 1 through 6, 1 versus 16, those games are very rarely close. So, how do you fix it? I know Illinois tried to do it with their way, but they still ended up with lopsided victories too. So football is just different because you got the physicality point of it, and now you're talking safety concerns, um, and things like that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
It
glad
was
there's
just
guys out there trying to figure out all this information. That's for sure.
it was just that stat just really stood out. And I think about like in the college level, they expanded the playoffs, and yeah, not that I have many dogs in that fight, but
Mm-hmm.
you watch like the first round and it's not as competitive as you would hope. And then even in the NFL ranks, where sometimes the wild card team will play maybe a middle division winner,
Right.
and again, it's just you know they have to sort through to get to like the championships and
Yeah, and
eventually.
then a lot of people kind of talk more, too. It's like, well, the districts are made up before the season starts. Maybe you play the season, then you come up with the districts, or come up with some sort of ranking system to get guys in good spots. And I mean, I know we want everybody to play 10 games, but in Illinois, hey, sometimes you just play 9. Sometimes you know. I'm sure if you ask some of the 7 seeds that went up against 2 seeds or 1 versus 8s this last week, and they got 50 bombed, what's best? I don't know.
Yeah.
I like the situation we're in, though.
Oh, I do too. I do too, no doubt about that. So appreciate you getting your thoughts. I mean, we don't have to
Yep.
boil the ocean today in this podcast, but again, it was just a really great stat and very insightful to see that type of
Well, yeah, I
yeah,
mean, there's a lot of different ways you can cut it up too. I mean, public versus private. Why are public schools, um, you know, in the same bracket as a private school? When these private schools can, something tells me Jesus doesn't really care about how good Catholic football teams are. But still, these guys are recruiting and living by a different set of rules, and they have, you know, their square mileage that they can pull from, about 1,800. Ours, not that much. Maybe a couple
Yeah.
hundred. So where's the fair in that? Where's the integrity in that? And when there's recruiting happening, um, and scholarships are being handed out, it's like, well, what's fair and what's not fair, and it is what it is, and something that I don't mind actually taking a little closer look at this off season too, because sometimes things just aren't right.
That could be one of the topics we cover, and so I look forward to that. But first, let's have a few games to
Yeah,
play, and then we'll talk
yeah.
about
Let's
what's
let's we still got football to play, and we're
yes.
excited and looking forward to Northwest coming down on Friday night for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're going to have you updated throughout the week. Check out our Facebook page and also our YouTube channel where we'll put this podcast and our podcast archive as well. And so, Coach, here we are at the end of time. Wanted to give you the floor and have you take us out tonight.
Yeah, last 8 Saturdays we spent watching Junior Jaguar football. I spent my last 8 Saturdays watching Junior Jaguar football. Some days, we'd be hosting at home, and I was up there all day. Other days we're away, and I've got the fourth grader playing and the seventh grader playing, so you can't even go to the bathroom between two games. Go home, go to the bathroom, and come back when you've got that time slot. So a lot of times I'm just sitting up there watching and watching the future of the program and feel pretty good about it. So this past Saturday, kind of our first Saturday off, and what did I make my wife go do? We went and watched some more football. We had the weekend. The hockey schedules worked out, and we have our three SEMO boys: Anthony Westerveld, Zach Hudson, and Cole Rubel down at SEMO. That's where I graduated. It's where me and my wife both went to school, and we just like, hey, games at one. Let's go down and watch. And you know, I've got to watch two SEMO games the last 2 years, and both times it rained. So when Coach Baer comes to the game, we bring the rain, I guess. I don't know. But, it was kind of, as far as the weather was concerned, not a great day, but we tailgated. We had a good time, went and watched the game. And honestly, it was just a lot of fun for me to sit in the stands and be a fan, and get to cheer on Cole and watch Zach and watch Anthony. Anthony's crutching around on the sideline after an ankle injury, but just getting to go and watch guys that, I worked with and, you know, got an opportunity to coach, go and play at the next level and had success. I mean, I got a little rowdy in the stands, Carl. I'm told I'm a loud fan. I don't know. Um,
Hey, you're there as a fan. Have fun, enjoy
yeah.
it, right? Isn't that
Well,
the
I did. Don't you worry. They we're sitting in the stands and they were throwing up these white things. I thought they were throwing up T-shirts. So I'm like, oh, throw me a T-shirt. And they throw me one. I connect with one of the cheerleaders. She throws me up a thing, and I catch it, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of warm. I don't think this is a T-shirt. And I opened it up. It was an egg roll. And I mean, you know what? If you catch an egg roll at a college football game, you know what you have to do. I mean, you have to eat it.
oh, yeah.
So
Coach, I'm thinking that might be a good promotion for next year.
yes,
That
if
would
we
be
got
fun.
any local Chinese restaurants that want to promote, we will throw out some egg rolls at the game. It was a good egg roll. It was still warm. It was crunchy. Um, my son actually got to go down on the field after the first quarter and do a little tractor race on the 10-yard line. Got on the jumbotron and everything like that, and we actually brought the tractor home. He won, so we brought the tractor home. And this thing was like 70, 80 pounds.
Wow.
It was freaking heavy. I mean, yeah. I mean, everybody watching me carry it, I'm like, look, this thing's heavy. Um, so SEMO just does a really good job with their game day experience. It was a lot of fun. Uh, Tailgate was great. It was rainy. Team struggling a little bit, but I imagine on a beautiful day and a full crowd. I mean, what an atmosphere! What a blessing to be able to play. And then, like I said, we get to watch Cole Rubel go out there and do his thing. He played a great game, and I've been following all season. In my mind, one of his better games. He caught a couple swing passes out of the backfield. I think he ended up with 6 carries, 21 yards, and you think, ooh, he's not running for 200 yards. He's not doing what. No, this is college football. They threw the ball 56 times that game. May not have been my shirt. I'm not going to be up there questioning the coach, Carl.
Uh,
All right,
I was going to ask, but I'm glad you
but
clarified.
hey, he was doing the most with his opportunities. Got a lot of playing time, and probably one of my favorite moments of the game. They push it all the way down the goal line. They try a tush push with their big 6'7" quarterback. That don't work. So all of a sudden, I'm thinking, oh, they're going to kick a field goal. Great. And all of a sudden, I see Cole Rubel. He's trotting out onto the field, and I'm like, you know what's coming, and I'm just yelling, Rhino! My son's probably shrunk into a ball as I'm doing this, but I'm yelling Rhino because we know what's coming. And then they line up in a heavy formation, just like what we have. Instead of two guys in the backfield that we had, they have three. They actually call it a Hulk Rubel. He took the direct snap, and you don't see a lot of this in college. They call it the Wildcat. Took a direct snap and scored a touchdown. He scored a touchdown in the last two weeks, and that was huge. I'm all fired up. I think I ran down to the gate, got as close to the sideline as I possibly could, and he's fired up on the sideline, and I'm like, I'm trying to wave him down, and we make eye contact. That's how we do it. That's how we do it. I was all fired up. It was good. It was a fun game. They lost by a touchdown. Team struggling a little bit, and certainly been there before. I don't envy those college coaches one bit trying to keep a team like that together. But it's just fun to see the guys, and Cole and Anthony and Zach were nice enough to they get out of the locker room. They're college kids. They want to go out and do their thing. But they came out and chatted up me and my family, and we talked and kind of reminisced a little bit and talked about the game. And I got some good photos here. Hold on, let me pull these up here, Carl.
Sure.
We're live, folks. Sorry.
No, and it's funny you mentioned Cape. So I lived down there back in the late 90s through the early 2000s, and the football stadium didn't have the renovation. The program was not what it is today. And
Right.
so it sounds like, especially having those Seckman boys, those three players down there, that's awesome. I think that's so great.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm like we're just so proud of them. And, I know it's just really cool. This is a picture of me and Cole after the game. He's making me look small, Carl. And Cole Rubel, he's weighing about 200, 205 pounds. He's got a power belly on him. Hasn't lost a step of speed. And then I got one of, oh, dadgummit, if I can find it here. Hold on. Here we go. Here's one of me, Zach, and Anthony. I mean, they've got me feeling like a small old man there. But it's
Zach,
just great to see those guys. A lot of fun memories from when they were here, and it's fun to watch them go out and do their thing. And we got those three playing at SEMO. We got Robert Frank, he's a senior at McKendree. You got Caleb Niebuhr, he's a junior, redshirt junior maybe at Lincoln University. We got three boys at Missouri Baptist with Dean Meckel, Tommy Gabar, Trent Enlow. And then we also got Zach Sell, who's out at Benedictine. So, not Zach Sell, Max Sell. Sorry. Too many cells. Yeah. It's just great to see those guys that want to continue their career have the opportunity to do that, here at Seckman. So it was just a fun Saturday, and proud of those guys, proud of all of our guys, and, great way to spend the day for sure.
Absolutely. Sounds like a great day. And, even when those players turned in their jersey, they're always a Jaguar. And so it's just great that you still, have that connection with the players and get to have the opportunity to go down there and see them play at the next level. That's very special.
Yes, no doubt.
All right. So, Coach, that takes us to time. Again, we're going to be out there Friday, 7 o'clock at the Valley, semifinal in the district. And, Coach, we appreciate your time, and roll Jags.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate it. Playoff time. Stakes are high.
We'll be ready. Have a good one.
See you.